This is literally every FNF mod ever. Versus Bob is a parody, created to make fun of every major stereotype and trend that were present in FNF mods of the time. Not only that, but it also served as a warning to those that followed those trends. They did this by over-exaggerating the problem, showing just how out of hand it can get. With that in mind, I will be breaking this mod down, discussing what it portrayed and how well it did with this. If you enjoy this content and want to see more, please leave a like and subscribe. The art is fairly simplistic. I mean, just take a gander at Bob. From his shape to his poses, Bob's design is simple. His expressions, even with the change, fit this. And the scenery is a simple hill that gets ruined by dark clouds. When he gets mad, he turns from simple to hyper-realism, and the scenery in hell is quite detailed. Now, Ron is a folder with a face on a body drawn in MS Paint, including the street. His poses are nonsensical, but he does not stick around for long. Bob returns, now being a mess of his two appearances, and the street is ruined in a similar way to the hill. Bob eventually loses his patience, becoming creepy with a simpler look and turning the scenery into a nightmare. Then there is Little Man, who is certainly a little man, but also an angry man. For the overall simplicity, it has a great presentation. The soundtrack plays to the intentions of its concept. Sunshine is a simple, jolly tune you would hear from old PC games. Withered is built off a similar composition, but with more sustenance and focus on both tension and a little bit of horror. Run has an energetic beat and gives off a scary, tense vibe. The vocals are just note spam, and while that does make it unpleasant to listen to, there is a reason for that. Ron is a song built around presentation. Its heavy bass and high energy, along with chiptune and strings, make for a head-bopping song. Trouble is a chiptune song fit for a trek through a rough alley. It plays the same verses 3 times, but it gets more difficult with each one. Onslaught continues the chiptune with an intense composition befitting a boss. Little Man is a song designed to be repetitive. You start off with this verse. And over the course of 7.5 minutes, you will hear this verse 13 more times. Bob's voice is a friendly sound, and that sound gets slightly altered to fit with the mood of each song while still being recognizable. Ron has a voice that just works, and Little Man's voice is a high-pitched sound. The soundtrack is great for what it is. The gameplay is where the mod really makes fun of other mods. The charting is fairly old school, not just in its own right, but also for what it was copying. This includes the blatant errors and odd interpretations of high-density notes. Because the mod is a parody, I had a hard time determining the line between errors being intentional or accidental, but I decided to rule them as intentional. I mean, I do not plan on assessing any potential errors with Run. This note spam hell was meant to show how out of hand charting could get from mods made during the Whitty era. It also has this jump scare visual that occurs randomly. On the other end is Onslaught with its multiple mechanics, showing how obnoxious songs could get from the mods made during the Tricky era. You have a note you must hit, a note you must avoid, a visual distraction, and some strumline shenanigans. Failing with a special note will cause a strong health drain. You can survive it, even at stronger values with a good enough performance. The visual is a pop-up that can be one of multiple random images, and where it appears is also random, but it will only appear on your side. The gameplay actually has better balance than the mods had made fun of. The writing is the star attraction. Bob's Week plays on the trend of following the format of base game Week 6. The opponent starts peaceful, gets annoyed, then transforms into a monster. Run is not intended to be beaten, and if you die, the game closes and sends you to a website. That no longer works. It is supposed to show that Bob is mad. It is possible to beat it, and if you do succeed, you get a creepy cutscene where Bob mentions that he will always remember you. Bob's Onslaught plays on the lack of meaningful story that mods of the Tricky era tended to have, with Onslaught making fun of songs that simply spam mechanics and provide no explanation. Boyfriend gives a retort, in which Bob responds with another broken link. He says fuck you and flips you off. Onslaught actually uses affordance by making the harmful node dark and the other node generally bright to at least give some kind of hint. Beating Onslaught prompts Bob to say he has been beaten, but he will still remain. It then shows a link to a Google Drive that contains an ARG. Little Man is making fun of songs that repeat the same patterns for most of the song and go on for longer than they need to. At least Little Man keeps things fresh with humorous audio and other jokes. Now for a few small facts. Run is spammed 100 times in free play. I am not kidding. There is a happy mode toggle that makes Run family friendly. Attempting to access the chart editor in Run or Onslaught will present a sort of anti-cheat before throwing you back into the song. Anytime you enter the main menu, there is a random chance for a strange thing to occur. Although you cannot fully see him, Ron is doing the Peter Griffin death pose in Trouble. Lastly, Little Man features the actual vocals of the main verse from Ugh. The developers knew exactly what they were doing with this mod. That is everything that I have to discuss. Here's a recap of my scores for the mod. Versus Bob is the perfect parody, firing shots while making for an entertaining experience. While this also tried to be a warning with how excessive it got, there were plenty of people that did not listen. But at least the mod lives in fame for what it did. Feel free to share your thoughts on the mod in the comments below. Until next time.